In this video, we'll discover how to make basic manipulations into our object. So let's go and add here a Suzanne, okay? Just like that, monkey. With the shortcut Control 2, like that, I can add a modifier like this and make just a shade smooth like this. It's quick and easy. Okay, so the first thing to understand with manipulation, it's here the tools that you have. So you have the move, you have the rotate, you have the scale, and you have the transform, okay? The move, like it says, you can move on specific axis. Like for example, if I use the red arrow here, I will move my object into the x-axis, okay? And same for the other axis like that, okay? When I use here inside the circle, I move it freely, okay? And all of that, you can use it with the shortcuts. Like the shortcut for move, it's grab, so it's J. So G here, okay? So you move it like that, G. And if you want to move it on an axis, you move with GX. And you move it on a specific axis like that, okay? And it's exactly the same for the three main tools. So for the rotation here, you will have your different arrows here into the gizmo that you can play with, different circles like that, and it will make the rotation that you want. And same if you go into inside the circle but not on a specific axis, it will rotate a little freely, moving differently, rotating differently from the axis of the view that you have. So it's important to understand that it's from the view here, okay? And it's exactly the same. So with rotation, it's R, okay? Shortcut is R, like rotation, very easy to remind. And RZ, for example, we make RZ a rotation like that, or RX a rotation like that, okay, on a specific axis. And you have the third tool is the scale. The scale is to make the object more little or more big like that. Okay, so you can play with the inside the circle without specific axis, or you can play with the circle with the specific axis that you have here. Okay, you can play as well with the two here little squares, the three little squares. So here, for example, if I use the Z, I will scale along two axes, like, but not the Z axis. Okay, yeah. So if I use the blue, it removes the blue. If I use the green, it removes the green. So I will scale only into Y and X, and I will have a shape like that, okay? It didn't scale into the Y axis. So it can be useful sometimes. So when you want to do that with shortcut, you make SX, you make a scale into the X axis, but if you make S Shift X, you will scale everything, but not into the scale, the x-axis, okay? So Shift X, Shift axis will remove the axis on the operation. And it's exactly the same. Like for example, if I want to grab my object and keep it on the ground like that, I will not want to move it into the Z axis. So I will make G and Shift Z. And like this, it will move only into the X and the Y axis. And like this, I'm sure into the side view that it will keep the same Z value like that, okay? So I will make Alt G to put my object back into the center. When you want to remove the operation that you did, like for example, if I make a G, I make a rotation like that, I make a scale. Good. So I did make some operations like this. If you want to cancel all of these operations, you can make Alt G, Alt R, and Alt S, and it will come back, the object will come back at this origin status. You can visualize that here into the item menu here that you have for the transform values. You can visualize this, because if I move this, you can see the location did change. If I make rotation, the rotation did change. If I made a scale, the scale will change as well, okay? And now if I make RG, it will come back to 0, Alt R, it will come back to 0, and Alt S, it will come back to 1, because a scale needs a value to start, so it needs a 1. If you have 0, you don't have any object. Like for example, if I put this here, all the vertices will be at 1 point here, so it will not be possible to see the object. So now we have the possibility to play with that, or you can play directly with dimensions. By default, with these scale values, the dimensions will be this. And for example, if you want a specific dimension, you can play with the dimension like that, okay? So it can be useful, but be careful, it will change the scale here, okay? So it's normal behavior like that. So you can change just with the shortcuts very easily. I mainly recommend to not use the tools here. The tools are here, and it's good to come back when you, maybe sometimes, but I never use these tools. I always use shortcuts because it's quicker, it's more efficient, and especially when you have this tool here, when you have this gizmo, it takes a lot of space. It takes a lot in the mind and in the eyes. I mean, you don't see really the geometry behind and everything. It takes a lot of space into the interface. So I really prefer to stay there and to use the shortcuts with with rotation, with the scale and everything. You have the other last tool that it's even worse for me. But some users, they will be happy to have this, but really I don't recommend to use that to be efficient in modeling. You can see that you have all the tools in one. So you have the scale like that, you have the rotation here, and you have the move with the arrows. So yeah, a lot happens in the interface, and yeah, it's kind of disturbing for me. So I prefer to have a clean interface like that. So now, you can play with numbers as well. You can see that you have here specific values, and you can play with these values just by use exactly the same shortcuts. Like if I want to move my object 5 meters on the right side, I will make gx 5 and enter, or left click to validate the shortcut I made. And you can see now I have this. If I move it again with GZ 0.25 maybe, you can see that it did move with 0.25 meter here on top. So yeah, very efficient way to use that as well. So can be very very useful to add some values, or maybe you want to play with rotations, you use the degrees here. So if you make LZ 45 degrees, it will move 45 degrees on the z-axis. Rotate, sorry, not move. And here you have the scale. So the scale, you can just remember that the basic object, it's 1, okay? So if I make S 0.5, it's 2 times less big. And if I make Control Z and make S3, it's 3 times. So yeah, very important to understand these values as well, because you can play with specific values on specific axes. You can use a few things as well to help you to manage these operations of rotation, location, and scale. If you use the control after the shortcut control, just after making the G, sorry, and I move, you can see now, I don't move it freely. I move it with increment, and it will stay with an increment of 1 meter. So it will depend of your view. If you are in perspective view, it will never change. So for example, here I make G and use the control, it will move every meters, okay? It never changes in perspective view. But if you stay into orthographic view, in free view, sorry, if you stay in orthographic view and on a specific view, like for example the top view, okay, so you can see that you have more you zoom and more some divisions will appear on the grid, and it will be these divisions that will be used when you use the control key. So if I use the G now and make the control, you can see that the increment is every 10 centimeters, for example, okay? If I zoom out and make G again, so now it will be every 1 meter and etc. So I can make like that, and now it will be every 10 meters. So can be very useful for modeling precisely, things like that. So yeah, but it will work only on specific view, like front view, side view, and top view, like that, okay? So here we have the possibility to play with shift as well. Like for example, if you want something precise, maybe you make a scale, okay? And yeah, before talk about this, I want to make a point with the scale option. It's very important to understand that when you start your operation very near of the center of the object, okay? So if I use my cursor here, if I put my cursor here and make the scale and start the scale from here, you can see that a very little gesture of your mouse will make a big thing into your screen, okay? Because I'm very near, so a very little movement will make a big operation like that. But what I want, it's something that I can control. So I can use the same operation, but start between the end of the 3D interface and the object. So somewhere here, okay? And you start your scale like that. You will have far more control. You can try yourself. It's very important to try it yourself. You will have really far more control to manage your operations. Yeah, and to be efficient like that, to be precise. If you want more precision, you can use the shift key, okay? So you start your operation with G, and now with the shift key, you will have something very precise. It will be exactly the same with G, Z, for example, okay? You have with shift, it's the same movement I make with the mouse, okay? And without the shift, it's the same movement I make with the mouse. So it's reduced 10 times the movement of your mouse. So very important to know this tool as well. Okay, so control key will come back to the increment. Shift key, you have something more precise, and Alt G, for example, if I use G and Alt G, it will cancel all the operations that you will put here, all the numbers that you will put here, and come and make the origin of the object come back into the center of the scene. And it's the same for rotation and scale. So you can see that you have only with shortcuts a lot of possibilities already. And that's why it's very important if you want to be efficient in modeling, and Blender is a really powerful tool for that. I mean, I see other softwares that are good, and yeah, and even sometimes very good in modeling. But honestly, Blender with the shortcuts, it goes very quick. If you know a little your gear, you can model something very quickly. So I recommend you to use their shortcuts. It will help you in your level later. And so that's why I wanted to show this. And you have other possibilities here of manipulation, specific manipulations, and it works with object. Like for example, I did show you that already, but if I make a rotation like that, you can see that my tool is still moving like this, okay? And if I make GX, it's still into the global axis. But if I use, for example, the local axis and make a GX now, it will move into the local axis. So can be sometimes very important to understand that. especially sometimes in edit mode. We will see edit mode later, but you want to move a face on a specific axis, and it will help a lot. So you have the local, you have the normal. It's similar but more in edit mode. You have the gimbal for the rotation, it's mode for the rotation. You can move it from the view, from the 3D cursor. You can see that the 3D cursor into the view section, you can put some rotation as well into the 3D cursor. The little tool into the center here that you can move as well to help you or have another pivot point maybe or something like that. So yeah, you can play with the rotation as well, and it will make a specific rotation that you can play with separately from the object. So yeah, all these tools, I don't move a lot these things here. I play between global and local. It's already enough for me. Here you have the possibility to play with the transform points, and it's a kind of, I will just duplicate some object to show you that. And you see that if I select my 3 objects here, I make here a rotation, and I have a kind of invisible point by default that made a pivot point here. And it's a kind of median localization between the 3 objects, okay? So it will be like that. But you have other possibilities to use this transform. You can use, for example, the 3D cursor, and it will rotate around the 3D cursor, okay? You can make an active element, and now it's my last element, my last object selected that will rotate the other objects, okay? Can be interesting as well. You can play with the median point, so it's the one by default that we have. We can play with individual origins, and now if I make a rotation, all the objects will make a rotation from their specific pivot point, okay? Just like that. And now you have the bounding box center. It makes more or less the same than the median point. And so yeah, can be very important to use as well. You have other options here. It's the snap, and the snap by default will work on the increment. So if I move now, you can see I will make some movement but incremented. You can tell here to be inside the grid. So like this, you are sure that your values here will be really on the grid, so you cannot have some dots here. Then you can move on faces, for example, as well. So it will be something that we will see a little more later, but let's add a plane here to show you that, okay? So for example, now I move my object freely, okay? And if I move, it's above the surface. And so if I move it, and we can add another view to see that. Okay, on the side view, we can see that here the object is moving, but it doesn't touch here and doesn't stay on the surface. But I can use the surface to stick my object on it. And it's very important for example, you have a chair that you want to put on the ground, or a cup that you want to put on the table. It will be very important to know this tool. So what you do to use this tool, you just enable the snap, okay? You can play with vertex, edge, face. Mostly we will use face project most of the time, okay? We will align the rotation to target, and that's it. And now if I select my object and move it here, you can see that it will stick on any surface behind. And as you can see, the rotation of the object did change as well, okay? Because now it's aligned with the object. It can be on any surface and on any rotation. Like for example, if I add a sphere and make the same with my object, you can see that now it will move around the object and take the surface rotation to align with it. So it's very important to understand that. It's very important that to see that the center of the object is used and not the surface of the object. So it means that if you want Suzanne to stick on a surface specifically, it means that you will have to move the center of the object. And to move the center of the object, I will make Alt-J or put it in the center and Alt-R to put it there. To put the origin, so the origin point here, it's the dot, little dot, and it's this one that is used to project there. So if you want to have the origin here, there, and make a GZ, and you want to apply this, you made this, but you want the origin to come here now, on the ground. Like this, Suzanne will stay on the ground. You want to apply this, and to use this, you make Control A. Control A is the apply menu. You can apply the location. So now you see that the object didn't move, but the origin point, it's at 0. So now my object has a different origin point. It's not in the center, it's under. So it's important to understand that. And I will apply the rotation as well. You can see that now I have 0 everywhere. And now if I move Suzanne, so for example, I will put it there. If I start to move Suzanne with this, it will directly stick on the ground and like it's really on the ground, okay? So, and it will work with any surface. Like for example, if I had maybe a UV sphere, put it bigger, just like that, come back with Suzanne and move it, you can see that it goes directly on it. So very important to understand that. Like this, you can stick your objects into the surface with this technique, and it's very important. So that's it with the object manipulations. We have little things here. Maybe I will generate like that. A last little thing, but we will have a full chapter about it. I will just add a monkey here again and duplicate it a lot without this option. Okay, and you will have here the possibility of moving your object with proportional editing. Here you have the proportional editing. You see that if I move my object, I have a little circle that comes now. That wasn't before. If I disable it, you see that it's not here. So I can increase this circle by moving and increase with the scroll of my mouse. And now you can see that the other objects around will be affected. So can be useful sometimes to move things a little like this, but it will be very important in edit mode this, and I will make a full chapter about it. I just wanted to cover this one, and this one on this video, but yeah, this one will be a specific video on it because it's very important. So that's it for the object manipulations. So first things to remember, and it's the most important, is the G, the R, and the S, okay, like that, with the X, Y, Z, and you can enter values directly with the shortcuts, above the shortcuts. So very important and powerful tool. That's it. We will start to model with primitives into the next video. We will start to model little objects, and we will increase the level during the chapter.